What's going on, everyone? It's Johnny here with Trader X, and I hope you guys are all having a beautiful morning. It's February 21st, 2022, and it is currently President's Day today, so the market is closed. But I wanted to go ahead and give a recap of my thoughts on the NASDAQ, where it may be headed, and update you guys on a Facebook swing position that my brother and I took about a few weeks ago when Facebook dropped 25%. But yeah, you guys are used to my brother recording last week. He recorded all the videos. That's who you heard. And we share a joint account, so I'm going to be the one trading this week and making these video recaps. So let's go ahead and get into it. So this is the overall NASDAQ future right now. And although President's Day means the stock market's closed, this type of future tends to move. So we are able to see a little bit of where the direction is headed of the NASDAQ. And as of right now, you guys can tell it's been making lower highs, lower lows, trading between the middle VWAP and bottom VWAP. So it's not looking too good for the NASDAQ. On the 180-day time frame, gives us a better sense on the bigger picture of where the NASDAQ could be headed. We can see it's at a pretty critical support level where it's tended to bounce before right around these levels. So the NASDAQ has been making these lower highs, lower lows, which is obviously not a good sign. It's indications that it is selling off. And so as far as how I think it will play out, it's obviously at a very critical support level. So it could either catch a support, but it has still been getting rejected, right? This green line is the 180-day SMA line. So as you can tell, right around these areas, the NASDAQ was acting the SMA line was acting as a support for the NASDAQ, right? It was making these higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. But now it is beginning to act as sort of a resistance level, so I did want to inform you guys on that. You guys can see it's been rejected once here, twice, 3 times, 4 times now, near the SMA line. So as far as the news that's going on with Ukraine and Russia, that definitely isn't helping the market. So if we continue to see these news headlines of Ukraine, Russia, inflation being really high, interest being really high, then it's not the best news. It definitely keeps investors uneasy. So if Russia, which it looks like they are deciding to invade Ukraine, were to happen, it obviously won't be a very good sign for the market, and this thing could take a dip. It could break this critical support level and continue to sell off, right? So if we look at it at bigger time frames, like the 1-year chart, we can see it has gotten rejected off this SMA line, right? And if we look at an even bigger time frame, the past 3 years of the NASDAQ, we can tell, like, it obviously has room to fall, right, guys? It's not going to come out of nowhere. It has tons of room to fall. It's previously fallen pretty hard right around here. When was this? In March of 2020, right? And it was able to bounce off this SMA line, and it had a really nice run. Right around here was when everyone was panicking with COVID and all of that stuff, so it definitely caused the market to tank, and the news would act as a negative catalyst. But once it was able to recover, it really, really recovered, right? Not only to all-time highs, it absolutely obliterated it. So right now it is still a little more, truthfully, on the overbought side in terms of the bigger picture. That's why I think with all this bad news coming out especially, this thing could continue to sell off, and it has plenty of room to sell off, guys. So I just wanted to keep you guys informed on that. So the reason why I'm paying attention to the NASDAQ is it's composed of the top tech stocks, right? So if the NASDAQ sells off, it typically influences other tech stocks to begin to sell off as well, and vice versa. So if this thing pushed up, other stocks like Tesla, Apple, Facebook, they would all follow through. So if we look at Facebook right now, it has been selling off, right? Trading between the middle VWAP, bottom VWAP, lower highs, lower lows, right? It hasn't been having any indication of an uptrend yet. So as you can see, this is originally where me and my brother bought, and we decided to buy one more share as it continued to sell off. Now the reason why that wasn't the best idea was because of the fact that we're adding money to something that's losing value, right? It doesn't really make much sense. We did only get in with a fraction of our position, but where we could have done better is waited for confirmation. And what do I mean by waited for confirmation? So if we go to something like, say, Microsoft, right? Look at the pattern Microsoft has had, not as of recently, because it's been selling off, it's considered tech too. But look at this beautiful pattern where it's riding the EMA line, making higher highs and higher lows, right? The exact opposite that I just showed you on the Nasdaq and Facebook. This thing was making higher highs, higher lows. This is what we want to see, and it would make sense to add money to something like this because it's growing in value, right? We want to add more money to something that's making us money, not losing us money. And the same way I would approach a day trade, I gotta implement my best practices with my swing trades too, which is where me and my brother went wrong a little in terms of this trade. But once it actually starts, so what I want to see on Facebook is, first off, the Nasdaq needs to be recovering, right? Because it plays a big influence on what Facebook will do. But as Facebook begins to trade above the EMA line, maybe push up a nice amount, pull back, then maybe right around a pullback is when I would want to begin to start to add. Once I see it's validating the EMA line, right? So instead of getting rejected, all of this getting rejected against the EMA line, I want to see the exact opposite. I want to see it start to ride the EMA line up and make higher highs and higher lows, right? And so from where the price point of Facebook currently is, to recover, just to recover to the SMA line, not even previous highs at 384, right? It offers around a 40% margin. That is very attractive because Facebook is a big company, right? One of the top 5 companies. So it just, it's I guess it shouldn't really worry you guys too much if the Nasdaq were to sell off, because that would only mean these type of stocks are getting cheaper, right? So it should be a good thing, especially if you haven't been invested at all. Me having been invested with 5 shares, if this thing breaks below 197, I'm gonna stop out and just cut my shares, cut my losses. And the reason I'll do that is because this thing could continue to sell off. Like I said, the Nasdaq has room to sell off, especially with all the news surrounding the stock market. This thing can sell. This thing, if the Nasdaq falls, this thing will go with it, right? So I need to be real with myself and cut losses somewhere. And it shouldn't be a bad thing. If anything, I should be excited that these type of stocks are getting cheaper. The same way you go to the store, if they're having a nice 25% sale, and you go and you buy like the latest Nike shoes or Gucci, I don't know, whatever you're into, and the reason it attracts you so much is there's a sale, right? So on something like Facebook that was trading at 384, it's down almost to 50% from its highs, right? 50% discount on a stock like Facebook, that should be attractive to you. And so that if the Nasdaq were to continue to sell off and this would go with it, that should only be more exciting to you. All of these tech stocks, which are, very secure investments compared to other stuff you could be investing in, they're just going to be getting cheaper and cheaper, which should, make you really happy. So that's definitely the mindset I think people should take when it comes to investing long term with these things. But like I said, we gotta wait for the confirmation. We gotta wait for the break above EMA, pull back, and start to validate it and make higher highs and higher lows. Do the exact opposite that it's doing here, right? So yeah, around 197, I plan on cutting my losses. And in terms of the Nasdaq, like I said, it does have a huge critical area right around here, and it can continue to fall hard, right guys? Let's not be surprised if it does. Let's just let's not be hopeful, right? We gotta make sure we always focus on the negative, if anything, more than the positive in terms of when we take a trade. Never ever think if something has a perfect setup, it's 100% of the time gonna go your way, because that's just living in fairy tale land, right? We gotta always look at the negative, implement risk management so that we know how much we're gonna give up on a trade and how much we can potentially make. So Um, in terms of the Nasdaq selling off too, I did want to mention real quick, you shouldn't think that just because the Nasdaq's selling off, there is no way to make money, right? So if the Nasdaq continues to sell off, since it's a Nasdaq-based future I'm looking at here, there are different types of ETFs you can trade, which will follow with what the Nasdaq future is doing, right? So let me give you an example. TQQ is a very popular one. These are triple leverage ETFs, which mean that whenever the Nasdaq pushes up 1 point, these things push up 3 points, right? So as you can see, as the Nasdaq continues to sell off, this thing will follow it almost exactly, right? So this thing sold off, as you can see on Friday, compared to the Nasdaq chart. They look pretty similar over here. This is like new information that still hasn't been updated on the ETF, but as you can see, they had virtually the same type of pattern on Friday, right? And so if the Nasdaq's selling off, you can get into the inverse ETF, which is SQQQ. So as the Nasdaq falls, this thing does the exact opposite, right? So on Friday, this thing had a really nice green day, right? This thing was up 5-6% from market open, which is very attractive. So if anyone ever tries to dissuade you from saying you can't make money in these types of markets, you obviously can, right? There are ETFs like I just showed you, TQQQ and SQQQ, that literally they do the exact opposite of each other. So if the Nasdaq's falling, you might want to think about getting into SQQQ, right? It wouldn't be the worst idea. So I did want to update you guys on that. And one last thing that I want to mention is I was able this weekend to figure out how to actually get filled a little faster on ThinkorSwim. So if you guys go up here to setup and application settings, you can see that I don't know why TD Ameritrade normally has the system here set to moderate. Mine was set to moderate, and I watched a really informative video that pretty much said you can set it to real time, no delay, and I've already noticed a big difference in terms of how the stocks update in price and how they move. So tomorrow I'll be able to better see if my orders will get filled faster in terms of this setting here too. Active trader, this thing, I forgot what it was set to, but if you set it to 0, it should try to get your orders filled faster. So that's something I have not been aware of for years trading on ThinkorSwim, and I don't know why they set it to those settings in default. But if you switch this setting, which is normally moderate, to real time, and active trader to 0 for order submission rate, and apply settings, you guys should notice a big difference. So I definitely have right now, but I haven't been able to trade it. So with this new setting, so I'll be able to do that tomorrow. But yeah, I did want to just update you guys on that in case any of you are using ThinkorSwim. That's definitely a huge setting that you're going to want to change right away. But yeah, this has been pretty much just me talking about where I think the Nasdaq's headed, where it might go with all this bad news, and yeah, where I plan to cut losses at Facebook around 197. I can always get back in, so I'm not too worried, because the cheap can always get cheaper, right? And yeah, I will pretty much update you guys tomorrow on any positions I take, and yeah, I'll see you guys at market tomorrow, and good luck to everyone with your trading. Take care and have a nice rest of your day.